My late father-in-law did his national service to the RAF in Norfolk, and one day he met two young Danish ladies, and they asked him what the Scots word for hello was, because they were having a wee bit of difficulty with his Paisley patois. So he said, "Keith." I'll leave you to make your own mind up at the end of this session as to what I'm saying is anyway, so just a wee bit of background. If you don't know me, normally I do presentations on land reform, which is a passion of mine, and I've done them all over the country. But I was a solicitor for over 40 years, excuse me, practicing in Paisley in Glasgow. As well as being the convener of the Dumbarton SNP Constitution Association, I have stood in council elections, Holyrood and Westminster ones, and have managed to successfully underachieve in them all. Having said that, I did get close to Jackie Bailey, though maybe that's not the right way of putting it.
I hope you said that.
I did. And I've told it what to speak too. I was the sort of convener of the Yes movement in Helensburgh in the 2014 election as well. I'm a director of Business for Scotland, and the views that I express tonight are not necessarily the same as Gordon McIntyre Kemp, but I think I'm moving them along the right lines. Anyway, so this is Roots to Scottish Independence. If any of you attended the convention in Dundee that the SNP had, you may have heard me sort of question some of the proposals, if we can call them that, or comments from the platform and from our leadership. I'll briefly tell you what I consider the different routes are, go through them briefly, and then I'll finish off actually with a resolution which Dumbarton CA and Helensburgh branch have submitted to the conference committee, and I'll be pleasantly surprised if they take it, but then we'll see what's what. So anyway, roots to independence. The law, what is the legal advice? Well, that's one of the problems, because we don't know what the legal advice is. We don't know if the Scottish Government has legal advice. They're asking the party membership to make a decision on something without actually making it available to everybody if there is legal advice. And I was a bit concerned because since the Dundee Convention, I've met 3 parliamentarians, SNP parliamentarians, and I've asked them the same question. Do you know what the legal advice is? And they say no. And I say, well, why not? Why have you not researched this? And they say, well, it's not our business to research it. And I said, look, you're legislators. You know, it should be your business. Not just myself was a bit disappointed with the reaction, but most of the folk in the meeting that was held to discuss the way forward. So, talking about legal advice, domestic law is different from international law. And international law is divided basically into 2. There's private international law, which basically deals with contracts between individuals or companies that may be resident in different countries, or there's public international law. And basically, when you're dealing with states, it's public international law. Now, public international law has been developed over many, many centuries, because there have been international treaties for many, many centuries between countries. And before the League of Nations, and then subsequently, I suppose, the United Nations, there was no real forum to sort of test the legitimacy of what these treaties meant, nor sanction as to what they could be imposed. And despite the fact that we have the United Nations, I think it would be fair to say that it largely restates what was the sort of custom of international law before the creation of the UN and the subsequent conventions, etc., which have been developed over the years. International law basically is based on 2 things. One is the law of the victor, if it's as a result of conflict resolution, and the law of national self-interest. So I'll go on to develop that a wee bit further, but that's basically what international public international law is. Now the hurdles to basically us becoming a nation state is first of all the process of delivering independence and the substance, which is addressing the fear of risk. So that's how do we persuade enough people to vote for independence. And I'll come to that a wee bit later, but if we deal with the process first of all. That's it. Right, persuading the electorate. Now there has been some talk that because the Westminster system works on the basis of a majority of MPs, that should be the test. I think that is the wrong test. I think to get international legitimacy and basically to be acceptable to the public, we need a majority of the votes cast. I think that is really, really important. We work a single transferable vote system, as you know, in our council elections and a proportional system in the Holyrood elections. So these are basically based on votes cast largely, and really that should be what we are seeking to achieve. As I say, it helps with the legitimacy. And international examples of persuading the electorate, well, international examples, they're all over the place. You've got countries which basically didn't bother with referenda at all to become independent. When the Czech Republic was dissolved, there was no referendum. It wasn't even in the manifesto of the competing political parties. It was just a movement that happened very, very quickly. So that's one example. Another example is, I suppose, that when the Soviet Union collapsed, particularly the Baltic states, but there were others as well, not all of them operated on the basis of a referendum. They just wanted to get out quick and re-establish the borders that they had generally before the Second World War. And there's also the question of what is a majority. Would we be satisfied with 50% of the vote plus one? Or, in order to cement this, given the fickleness of people and how they vote sometimes, should we really be looking to have something in the region of maybe plus 55, 60%, something of that nature? So, delivering independence. Can the SNP deliver independence? Well, that was the question basically that I put at the Dundee Convention, because if you cannot deliver independence without the consent of the UK government, can you deliver it? You need their consent, so basically you're just a pressure group. But if you believe that there is another way that we can obtain independence without the consent of the UK government, perfectly legally in international terms, then we are stubborn. So that is a question that I think we all have to sort of consider, and one which I think we deserve an answer to, and up to now I haven't seen any particular answer from any of the leadership. So let's assume that we get a majority vote at the next election. These are basically the four main possibilities here. There are variations, but these are the main ones. There's the Section 30, there's the appealing to international community, unilateral declaration of independence, or there's the dissolution of the Union. So if we deal with the Section 30, now, not every day will you come across a nice person like David Cameron, because David Cameron actually offered what some people call the gold standard in the way that they allowed the referendum to take place, and gave pretty wide power to the Scottish Parliament to actually operate that, fully in the knowledge that there wasn't a can't-kill chance that we'd win it. And they got a bit of a fright, I think, because of the vote that we managed to accumulate. But for that reason, and none other reason, no other UK government is going to give us a Section 30. It doesn't matter if it's a Tory government or a Labour government. They're just not going to do that. So I actually think that it's dead in the water, because it needs UK government cooperation. And the reason for that is that the Scottish, whatever we might wish, the Scottish Parliament is a product of the Westminster system. It's not the Scottish Parliament or the Scots Parliament that was adjourned in 1707, because it was a Parliament of an independent sovereign state. Whereas the Scots Parliament is a creation of Westminster, and it is subject to the Westminster system, sovereignty of the Westminster system, etc. And as much as we might complain about it, hate it, and all the rest of it, that is the legal position. And also, it is governed by those who basically regulate the legal system in this country and in the wider UK, and that is the UK Supreme Court. So we've seen from what they have said about the, having a referendum, etc., that we're not going to get any change out of them, particularly with the individuals that are on that Supreme Court just now. It could possibly change with other justices in the Supreme Court, but we don't know, and that could be many, many years down the road. So, time scale. Again, we don't know how long it would take, even if we managed to get a UK government to cooperate. I've heard Stephen Flynn talking about, you know, if we hold the balance of power and all this kind of thing. Well, again, I think that is a non-starter, given that there's a wide range of views within both the Labour Party and the Tories about, you know, their precious union, as they call it. So I just do not think that, you know, that's a go either. The other thing too is it brings into sharp focus the performance of the Scottish Government at the time. And you know, so some people might think that they've kind of taken their eye off the ball a wee bit in some of the policies, etc., which have been proposed and developed and implemented, or just the ordinary governance of the country. I still think they're light years ahead of what we were used to before, but you know, that is again an issue. And then there's the Brexit influence as well. I mean, Brexit has been such a difficult thing that it might actually put people off the idea of another referendum on that basis. So, appealing to international community. Again, it's difficult to find previous examples because every country that has, or every state that has been created, it's very, very difficult to get ones which have all the same characteristics as Scotland vis-a-vis the UK has. But I think the basic line is this, that the international community will, unless a break has been made in some way, they will not want to get involved in what they consider domestic policy or domestic law of any country. So we have the example of Spain and Catalonia, where the EU just wasn't interested in getting involved in that, despite the fact that the Spanish government were sort of a bit of a jackboot in the way that they dealt with it. They will say that the justification for that was that the Spanish constitution says that Spain is indivisible. And in order for Catalonia to leave, or anywhere else for that matter, there's going to be a change in their constitution, which involves the whole of the country, or the whole of Spain, and the chances again of everyone agreeing that, or even a majority in that, is probably few and far between. There's also the matter of international self-interest. You know what, again, countries generally speaking, unless there is something that is of particular importance to them, then they will not want to get involved in another state's constitutional change. Our friends abroad, a huge diaspora, but it's so far it is not. There is no signal that they would have any sort of pressure or significant pressure to make a difference in appealing to the UK government to give us the means in which we could either leave or just leave without their consent generally. And there's also the UK government's reaction. The UK government doesn't seem to bother too much if there is how we say it, disapproval of what they do in the international field. They're very much, you know, take it or leave it. There have been one or two instances in the past where they've had to do things differently, such as going away back to the Suez crisis and things like this, but that was because America basically said, well, you're on your own.